Now, we all have our own goals in life, but do you remember what caused you to make your goals and what influenced you into thinking, now this is what I want my future life to be like? Now, at some point in our lives, we all had to grow up and decide what we wanted our future to be like. But do you remember what gave you your life goals to begin with? I'm Logan Madris, and for my introduction, I will be presenting two objects that I feel represent me and my goals in life. One of which is my work shirt uniform from when I was working my first job back in high school, that I feel really helped me grow up at the time. And secondly, is this object right here, which seems like a passport. However, it does in fact hold my collection of pressed pennies, representing places I've been and places I want to go. So, my first object I have chosen that represents myself is my old work uniform. It's from La Colmena Market in Brawley, California, where I began my first job as a cashier. Now, this was not actually my very first job. I did begin working at another local market called Garcia's Market previously previous to before I started working at La Colmena. However, I do feel that my experience there was my stepping stone and what really brought me to grow up and become myself. I feel that it was where I began to change from a little high school kid to someone who's beginning to understand how the real world works. That offered me great experience and also great guidance that I then helped shape who I am coming into college afterwards. Overall, it was a very pleasant experience where I had started as a stock clerk. However, they ended up giving me full time to where I started working as a cashier and in La Canasteria. And as I've said, it was a phenomenal experience that offered great guidance and helped influence me to become the person I am today. And I feel it really helped change me for the better. That it was the point in where I felt I grew up. Now, what? Now, throughout my whole time working there and making money, I kept on thinking of one main goal of what I wanted to do when I grew up, when I get older, and that is to travel more out of the valley. That's why the second object that I chose to represent my aspirations is, as I mentioned before, a folder that contains a pressed penny collection. Now, I haven't been outside the valley much throughout my entire life. I've been to as far as San Diego before, and that's about it. But of the places I did go to, I did always make sure to keep a little souvenir. Now, these are all from when I was younger. I went a bit overboard. So, all of these here, it's only three places, and that is Las Vegas, Sea Road in San Diego, and Disneyland. So, that is why this also represents what else I want to do in life. The empty spots right here, I hope to fill with more press pennies that I gain along the way as I begin traveling more and more. And I hope that in the future, once hopefully after I'm done with my education here, that I'm able to travel more and collect more press pennies, assuming that they do still make them at the time. Because I'm not sure if the machines are still up and running now. So my two objects sold that are my two objects here shown where I came from, what I did when I was younger that allowed me to grow up to be the man I am today, as well as a representation of what I want to do after my education and in hopefully the near future. And that is travel a whole lot more than I have already. I hope to get a second one of these to where I can actually hold it. So maybe one roll can represent one place I've been, as opposed to all this being filled with only 3 places. And so, my takeaway for this is don't forget the reason that you're here and what you're working for, as well as keeping your future goals clear. Alright, thank you all. I'm Logan Madriz. This is my introduction speech for communications.